Entering the peak of hurricane season, that you look over not only us, but all coastal and island communities. Those who may be suffering. Lord, please watch over those who protect our country and our public safety personnel who work 24/7, 365. I thank you for this country's freedom of speech and our liberty. I ask for your guidance and wisdom tonight in making decisions that affect our residents and community for not only now, but for generations to come. It is in your holy name that I pray, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Acting Recorder, Nicole Deneen. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bell?
Here.
Councilmember Buchanan?
Here.
Councilmember Ferenz?
Here.
Councilmember Kinghorn?
Hello, Nicole.
Hello, how are you? Councilmember Moy?
Here.
Councilmember Rice?
Here.
Councilmember Smith? Councilmember Ward?
Here.
Mayor Carroll?
Here.
Administrator Fregoso?
Here.
City Attorney Copeland?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you so much. Under citizens' comments, I'm going to kind of update us a little bit. According to our city code, the city's comments, citizens' comments period on the agenda should be limited no more than 30 minutes. Total 30, thank you. Citizens wanting to speak shall notify their intentions to do so 30 minutes in advance, but tonight we ask people to sign in as they walk in. Citizens will be allowed to address council in the order of the request received. There are times when we may have special presentations, such as tonight with the CTC funds, that they will go first so everybody can hear what's coming down the pike, and then we'll go to our citizens' comments. We're going to ask that everyone try to hold your comments to up to 3 minutes so everybody can speak. This kind of creates a better, orderly session. Thank you all. Yes, ma'am.
The second item on the agenda for city council consideration is the approval of the previous month's
My goodness,
minutes.
you are sharp. I was ready to jump in. Do I have a motion to approve the journals of the previous meeting? So I hear a motion.
So moved.
One extra seat. Get one more seat. Bring her up here.
Any deletions or suggestions? Hearing none, all those in favor say by aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Ayes have it, unanimous. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about tonight is the CTC project, which is the sidewalk extension between the Shoto of Isle Palms Connector and Palm Boulevard. CTC, what is that? County Transportation Committee, the half-cent sales tax on your gas. Every community gets a portion of it and it's prorated. And then this council makes a decision on where that money should be spent. As opposed to being duplicitous, I'm going to ask our CTC engineer for Charleston County, Megan Smith, come up and do a presentation.
Hi everyone, I'm Megan Smith.
Yes.
I'm here to kind of talk about the Isle of Palms Connector sidewalk that we are looking to do out with Charleston County. I will go ahead and go to the first slide. So originally this project was funded through CTC funds for the design. We actually have just recently funded this project for construction through our transportation sales tax funds, which is kind of unique, but it's funded, that's all you need to know. So basically this project is here to separate pedestrians, the bicyclists, from the road, from the traffic there, from the vehicles. So you've got basically right here where the multi-use kind of shoulder kind of ends at the connector, at the base, and then there's nothing. There's nowhere for the bikes to go except for in the road with the traffic, with the cars and the motorcycles, and then turn onto Palm Boulevard. So we have decided we're going to put a variable width, kind of differing width, multi-use path from the base here through the Leola Hanbury Park. Sorry, I did the name wrong. And then connecting to a new, we're going to put a 10-foot sidewalk over here so that the bicyclists can get off the road, the pedestrians can get off the road and get out of that way, and you won't have that safety issue. So here's what it is now. As you can see, you've got motorists and absolutely nowhere for anybody to go, anybody to walk, anybody to ride their bikes. It's very dangerous. Here's another view kind of further up of probably right where the intersection is. Here is the actual park. So we will be coming in kind of through this area, going this way, and we're also actually going to be removing what's there and replacing with a porous sidewalk. So you'll have kind of a nicer view of what it is, and we're working with the city to get an alignment of that, to get what the landscaping should look like, things like that. So it'll be really pretty and really good for people to kind of come and use the park. Here's another view of it going towards this small boulevard here. And as you can see, it's just kind of gotten to the point where it's aged, and we're going to go ahead and replace that as we're doing the project. And then this, of course, is your existing 5-foot sidewalk that we're going to make into a 10-foot multi-use path. And here's our plans. They're kind of confusing, but basically, when you come off of the connector, there's going to be a ramp, and you're going to be able to ramp up, go along here with an 8-foot sidewalk to this point where it will turn into the porous asphalt or the porous concrete, depending on what the bids we get when we go to bid out the project. And then it'll connect through to the 10-foot sidewalk on the other side. And we're looking to hopefully put this out for bids and possibly start construction after the tourist season, because we don't want anybody getting all with all the traffic and stuff like that. So, yeah, any questions? Sorry.
Council, yes, ma'am.
So I know there's a water feature in there. Is there a way to somehow turn that into a bottle refill water station?
We've actually looked into that. Unfortunately, unfortunately, our funds do not allow for us to use them for a bottle refill station. We're only able to use the sales tax funds for certain things related to the transportation project, and that is not considered transportation related because it can be removed and moved.
Right, but maybe while things are torn up and, you know, okay.
Any other questions? Hearing none.
This is just for information purposes. As you all know, this project was funded. We had been waiting until the summer season is over to start construction. We've also reached out to the Garden Club to have them involved in the planning and preparation of the new site plan and see how we can enhance the Leola Hanbury Park and some more people can come use it. So you'll be seeing some action in the next couple of months.
Great compliments, because if it wasn't applied for, we wouldn't be getting it.
Yeah, it's a really good project. We're very proud to be working with the city on this.
Just so the residents know, we have different projects that we all vote on. And this was the top priority for safety coming off the bridge for pedestrians and cyclists. And I'm glad that we get this money back and can do this.
I know I'm going to use it.
Thank you, and good luck.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
Now to residents, citizens' comments. Let's. I won't speed you up. Take your time. Susan Page was the first signed up.
Do I need to come?
Yes, ma'am,
there?
please.
Okay.
Name and address, please.
Into the microphone.
Right. My name's Susan Page. I live at 5 Forest Trail Court 1. We've owned our house here for 9 years. Been here full-time over 5 years from the Charlotte area. And I'm here to speak to the first reading of the ordinance pertaining to dilapidated properties. There's several properties on the island that are extremely dilapidated, and I just will be honest and say that we happen to live next door to one of them. So I do have a vested interest in this issue. I'm glad I'm not in a position of needing or wanting to sell my house right now, because it would be severely, the value would be severely damaged by the appearance of the property next door. But I don't want this issue to be interpreted as all about just us being upset about our next door neighbor. You know, there's a bigger issue, and we're certainly not expecting the city to police every crack in anybody's paint or window that's not sealed. That's absolutely not what we're after, and I know that's not what they're trying to do, what a nightmare that we create for them. Is simply to put some teeth into the ordinances so that when there's extreme situations of neglect and dilapidation, that they can do something about it. They've actually been great through the years when we call with a complaint or a question about this property. They have done as much as they can. They contact the owner and they have the things that they can correct it, but it can't go very far the way it's written now. So we really have appreciated the attention that we've gotten from the Public Safety Committee and other people and Desiree and bringing it to this point. So I hope everybody will listen to that ordinance with an open mind and take it in the spirit in which it was meant.
Thank you very much. I got to film this.
This picture is.
Good, and thank you for the picture.
Okay, yes.
Thank you very much. Sure.
I think
Do
this
you
next
wanna see
person might
them?
be related to you. George?
Email that to them, we can include it in the.
Okay.
How are you, sir? We're fine. Thank you for coming.
George Page, 5 Forest Trail, Court 1. My wife, basically, I'm just gonna interpret the same thing she said, or say the same thing she said. We've been dealing with hundreds of raccoons, large rats, holes in the fences, and nobody lives in this place. It's not been lived in since we've been in the house. It was bought, I think, by another person a year before we did. I've even offered to help paint it, offered to use my time, my ladders, and it's been declined. The bottom line is it's devaluing the property around my home and anybody else who were to be ready to sell within a mile of that house. There's also several other properties, and like my wife said, we're not here to try and paint over every crack property. Right on my street and tell me you want to live beside that. We've got a pool in the backyard. We've got a fence that's falling down, which is going to create another problem. The deck, you can't walk on. You'll fall through it. The roof looks like it's about ready to fall in. So it's not just an ugly eyesore, it's a hazard. And the backyard's locked. If there was something that needed to be gotten to, I don't know how public safety could. So I would hope that after the reading of 2916, that 2919, 2916, that you guys give consideration to approving something that puts some teeth into the ability for public safety to come out and do something about this kind of line. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We have extra time. We only have 2 people sign up. We got up to 30 minutes. Yes, ma'am, you may. But once we hit 30 minutes, I'm gonna call it quits. Thank you. No, take your time, take your time. I'm just trying to let everybody have a say so. This is our first time doing this.
Okay, I'm my 25 minutes. Hey y'all, my name's Robin Harris and I live right by George and Susan. So I'm here about the dilapidated house too. My biggest concern over it is because I feel like it's a health hazard. I don't know about y'all, but I was a wild teenager. When I was a wild teenager, we broke into houses that nobody lived in and smoked our first cigarettes. I know, so I feel like I'm safe.
She's not
So
looking.
my fear is that, I know, out you go. So my fear is that teenagers are gonna break into this house. It would be so easy to get into and smoke their first cigarettes and drink their first beer and burn the thing down and maybe burn in the fire. It's a health hazard. It's covered in mold. You couldn't possibly go up to the front door because probably the roof would fall in on you. I'm the last person to want to live in an HOA. I came to Isle of Palms because I never wanted to be in an HOA again. But this isn't about an HOA. This is about health and being kind to your neighbors and not having George and Susan have to look at 10,000 coats of different colored paint. And, I mean, it looks like somebody was on drugs when they painted it. It's just a frightening mess, and it's not safe, y'all. It's just not safe. I can continue on if
No.
someone else wants to talk.
Thank you, Robin, so much. We still have a little bit of time. Anyone else? Here or none? We're gonna move on.
Can I ask?
Oh, yes, ma'am, I'm sorry.
Can I ask a question instead of a comment?
Come on.
So it sounds like there's this one house, there may be a handful. It's a public health issue, safety issue. So what does the current ordinance give the island permission to do on a public safety issue?
We're gonna be bringing this up for first reading by title only later tonight. And please, we know you, but would you state your name and?
I'm Brenda Rosenbaum.
Yeah, thank you, just for everybody
I'm
else to
sorry,
say.
yeah.
Address.
And your address.
Because the question is, if we're like changing a whole ordinance for one or two properties or three, and just what does the current ordinance allow us to do that we're not doing? I don't know the answers to those.
Thank you,
That's the
Brenda.
question.
Okay, anyone else? Hearing none, we're gonna move on. Reports from standing committees, Ways and Means, first of that.
Thanks, sir. The Ways and Means Committee met on August 20th at 5 o'clock. And we had our financial report from Treasurer Suggs. Some highlights. The general fund expenditure target's 30%, and we're at 43%. Versus 34% in 2019. Total of all cash funds, $19,186,000. Unaudited fund balance is $19,511,000 at June 30, 2019. General fund revenues are tracking at 5% for just at 1 month, and the expenses are tracking at 6%. They're both lower than average, but we pay a lot of things in July that relate to June. The previous fiscal year ends on June 30th. And so there's a lot of things that are paid, so it's a little bit out of whack there. City of Isle Palms tourism revenues keep going up. In 2019, the grand total was $4,683,843. That represents a 3% increase over fiscal year 18 balance of $4,567,149. And it's been going up every year for like the past 5 years. As you're well aware, in fiscal year 15, we first started receiving the beach preservation fee, which is added 1% on hospitality tax, on accommodations tax. And we got a half a year that year of $425,000, then it went up to $966,000 the next year in 16, and keeps going up and up a little bit. Small increase, over 3% over last year. As is always the case for July, many of the revenues collected this month related to fiscal year 19, and therefore have been accrued in June. No significant financial variances were noted in July, and currently the forecast for the year is the same as the budget. Cash positions and fund balances are currently strong due to the city's good financial performance in fiscal year 19 and little spending on major fiscal year 20 projects such as the public safety building repair. And then we discussed and passed several spending.
FY 1920 Carter proposed budget, and I believe
1920.
come up front, name and.
Sure. My name is Andrea Kozlowski. I'm the Deputy Director of Operations and Support at the BCD Council of Governments, which also runs and oversees requesting your approval of the fiscal year budget for the next year. So that's what I'm here to do this evening. Included in your packet was a detailed narrative on line-by-line items of what was included in the budget for next year. Two of the major accomplishments that we completed this year was the opening of the intermodal or the transit center, the Amtrak station. We just held a ribbon cutting on Monday, so that facility is open. We will start serving it with the transit buses on September 16th, but Amtrak and Southeastern stages are currently open for business out of that facility. Another accomplishment for us was Cardiff purchased its first park and ride facility. We have many around the region, however, we don't own any of them, so we have agreements with different shopping centers. But this is the first one. It's in the T-Mobile shopping center on Rivers Avenue. It's gated and lighted and has camera systems and restroom facilities. It not only serves our express riders, but it serves our fixed route as well.
So we look forward to, in the next few years, purchasing more park and ride locations. We are working with the city and Mr. Ward on a park and ride facility that will be in Mount Pleasant and will serve the hospitality industry on the Isle of Palms. We're working with our federal partners now to get that money flexed. So we hope in the next 6 to 7 months to be able to start that project, and hopefully in the next tourist season next year, we'll have that up and running.
Andrea, if you don't mind, I think what you're talking about, park and ride for our hospitality, we're talking about Wild Dunes, the marina, Front Beach, workers there.
Yes, sir.
Try to take some of the cars off the
Yes,
road.
sir. So we're working with the town of Mount Pleasant. I think Seacoast Church has an interest in allowing us to use some of their parking since they expanded their parking lot. So it's a conversation we're having now, waiting on the funding to be in place. But yes, it's the service that we're talking about.
Thank you so much for listening to us. Any questions?
Yeah, would you, mind reviewing what we discussed just before this meeting about, the budget and how the different municipalities, including Isle of Palms, fits into that? Who crafts the budget and who has the, ultimate final say-so over the budget?
Yes, sir. So we work closely with Charleston County. Our funding mainly comes from the half-cent sales tax, as well as federal and state grants that we receive on an annual basis. So we work in cooperation with all three of those entities to get the numbers imported into the state law. So that's why we come to you, even though there currently is no service or you don't provide funding to CARTA. Your seat at the table mandates that we must receive your approval on the budget on an annual basis. So we work very closely with the county throughout the entire year on making sure the numbers stay aligned. If there's budget amendments that need to be done, they're well aware of what's occurring.
Correct, and if I recollect, the federal contribution is just about close to half of our revenues, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir. Consider the Low Country Rapid Transit goes online. That was a huge initiative with the last half a penny sales tax that was adopted. So you'll see that coming in the next few years. By 2025, we hope to have that constructed. We are starting that process with the feds to go ahead and get in line so that we can actually apply for it and get underway of the NEPA process. So that will be a big item that you'll see in the budget, and all of that money, the local match will come through Charleston County.
And that federal money is over $20 million.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Mr.
Andrew.
Mayor?
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Just a question. I know that you've done the park and ride for hospitality workers downtown. Can you speak to what sort of numbers you've seen there, just broadly speaking, and what you could expect to see out here?
Yes.
Like what sort of impact essentially
Yes,
would we expect
absolutely.
to see?
That's a good question. The hospitality on Peninsula, or the HOP, we have seen a steady increase in ridership. We have noticed that our parking, we charge $5 for people to park, and then they can ride the service for free. We did add stops throughout the downtown area to allow just tourists to get on if they would like. It's a free service. We have seen a decline in revenue in the parking lot, simply because people have figured out that they could park on the street for free and then get on the bus and ride for free. We did purchase a different parcel of property, so we will be moving the HOP lot up the street near Santee's on Mount Pleasant Street in the next few years, once we can get that under construction. But we foresee the Isle of Palms service to be slightly different in that it will be a van pool. So we will purchase vans and work with the hospitality industry and the city to have vans parked. Either people can take them home or they can park them on site, and then riders can come and meet at a central location and all ride together. If there's several shifts and we need to work that out, we'll definitely work that out, but this service will be more of a van pool than a shuttle service.
I was just curious on the
Okay.
ridership. So that's
Anyone
great.
else? Andrea, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, going to approval, we have a motion,
No, we don't.
and we have to approve it. Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Unanimous, ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next on our to-do list is approval of the Leola Hanbury Award in an amount of $500 for Employee of the Year.
I'd like to make that in the form of a motion.
Second.
Discussion. Just for our residents out here, Leola Hamber was one of our senior members of city council, and when she passed away, she left $25,000 to the city. And she loved our public works department, our police department, our fire department, and she just wanted to create an annual fund. And so what we've done is created this fund at $500 where it self-perpetuates for here on. So, any other discussions or questions?
Just one comment, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Just that our hope is that the amount of this award will increase. We wanted to be responsible and choose an annual amount that would allow the gift to continue on in perpetuity. With the 2% interest rate, you can do the math and see that $500 will live on forever, unless the interest rate drops precipitously. But our hope is to engage more residents and community to increase the amount of those funds so that we can really reward our employees that we know work tirelessly to keep our city the beautiful place that it is.
Very soft arm squeezing. Thank you, John. Anyone else? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Ayes have it. Thank you. Award of contract to Thomas and Hutton in the amount of $229,500 for the design and engineering of Phase 3 drainage project. Drainage improvements to the 30th, 36th, and 41st Street Avenue outfalls. This is under Public Works, CIP Phase 2, 5 drainage. It's in our budget, but we have to move forward with this. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second. Discussion? Permits or anything? No questions. Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it, unanimous. Number 4, contract award Thomas and Hutton in amount of $62,600 for the design and engineering of the small internal projects in the Phase 3 drainage project basin. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion.
This isn't phase,
This is low-hanging fruit.
right, 5 small internal projects that
Right.
we can do without permitting within the next calendar year.
Exactly.
Okay.
Like Sparrow Drive, for instance.
Right.
Get it flowing.
Any other questions?
Exactly.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Unanimous. Number 5, an award of a 1-year contract to host compliance in an amount of $13,500 for the short-term rental compliance monitoring. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Question.
Yes, sir.
I understand what it is. I understand the $13,500. Some of the wording in that contract is a little bit confusing. It's a license that automatically renews in the second year, but I was unclear. It looks as if it jumps substantially from the $13,500 to $42,000. Can we have an explanation?
Sure. And Douglas, if you may explain about the difference in the cost. I will say that the initial quote for the first year, they are honoring it at $13,500. They did indicate, for some reasons, and Douglas will get into it, he's been talking to the company. They are claiming that should the city want to continue after the first year, then the price would substantially increase. However, they're very confident that the amount of revenue that the city would obtain as a result of having this compliance software, it's going to be significant. I will say that the contract that you all have in your packets is not the ones that's been revised by the city attorney. The city attorney has made some changes, and I agree, there's some language in that contract that needs to change, as well as eliminate that automatic renewal after year
Just
one.
one other question with that, since we'll get it all answered at once. It looked like they had sole option to cancel after 6 months. I see the attorney shaking her head. That's a little rare.
We're working on that.
Yes, we're working on all that.
Sole option.
Mhm.
Douglas, before you get into this, would you describe for our residents what this compliance monitoring does for us?
Yes, this company will scour the internet for short-term rental listings. They will then take our list of licensed rentals, bump it against the listings that they're seeing, and they will generate a list of unlicensed rentals, and they actually go so far as to handle the notification basically the first pass of notification to any unlicensed rentals. So that's what the company will do for us. When it gets to, so this, it's a very convoluted, long-winded story that I'm gonna spare you the details, but basically, one company has been taken over by another company, and the cost of their service has gone way above what we originally expected it to be. They've honored this one-time price. I think that internally, we're kind of thinking that this may be, we're gonna certainly keep tally of how much revenue this generates for us to see if at $50,000 it's a wise investment going forward. But we do expect that at least in the first year, we're gonna have kind of a windfall of compliance issues. I would suspect that, after all of those have been brought into compliance, that then that there will then be kind of a trickle coming in, and it may not warrant the price tag and the outreach. So we'll analyze that.
Other communities using it for?
They are using the old version. Nobody has actually switched. It was STR Helper, the county, and Folly really has kind of been using it the most. They've been using it readily and frequently, but they actually haven't switched over to this new ownership product. And the product is going to change, so we'll be kind of on the front edge of that change. We'll get host compliance instead of STR Helper.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So the contract that we have before us isn't the actual contract that we will have finally?
That's correct. I think it's being modified by the attorneys.
Okay, so, Mr. Mayor, are we voting?
13,500 or not?
You're basically approving a one-year contract. The language in the contract, we always go back and forth with their attorney, our attorney, to finalize the language to ensure that the city's protected. But at the end of the day, you're basically approving just the first year for the 13.5.
And the modifications to the contract to happen later?
Well, before I execute the contract, those modifications will be approved by the city
Will
attorney.
council see that final contract?
I'm sorry?
Will council
Sure.
see the
I'll-
final contract?
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions for Douglas while we got him up front? We'll bring him back later on. All right, hearing none. Thank you, Douglas. We have a motion and a second. Yes, sir.
Motion to approve. Oh, we already did.
Very good.
Yeah.
I'm looking for,
I was asking about.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Unanimous, ayes have it. And I believe that ends the Ways and Means items there, sir. Anything else on your agenda?
No, sir.
Thank you very much. Your next meeting?
Will be the third Tuesday, whenever that is, in September.
Very good. Thank you. No, don't worry about it. Okay, public safety, no meeting in August. Moving on to public works.
That's me. Public Works Committee met August 7th, 2019 at 9 a.m. All members and appropriate staff were present. The minutes of the previous meeting were approved and there were no citizens' comments. Director Pitts gave his report. Garbage collections numbers spiked in July. Vehicle maintenance budget ended the year with a slight overage, leading us to believe we have the right number, which is 85,000 plugged in for the current year. He formally introduced us to Robert Acero as a new Assistant Director of Public Works, and we enthusiastically and warmly welcomed him to the team. Very excited he's on board. Assistant Director Acero gave us a brief update on some of the initiatives he is working on. Under old business, we were updated on phase 3 drainage, and we just discussed the options and passed the option that we all approved, so we don't have to go there. And moved on to the small internal projects, and then we discussed a smoking ban on the beach and a public parks, and we directed staff and council to draw up a draft ordinance to present to public safety. And we are hoping to work in conjunction with Sullivan's Island on this initiative. We had a very spirited discussion regarding trying the new trash cans on the beach that have lids. The island has 56 beach paths and 175 yellow barrels on the beach. And these new trash cans are $300 each, so it's a little overwhelming. But there are still also logistical issues with loading the hopper with the lidded trash cans if the hopper is close to full. So we watched a video showing that, and it's a little logistically difficult. We ask that the trash can be placed somewhere where we can monitor it and see how people react to the new can. We're very concerned that people may pile trash next to the trash can rather than lifting the lid to put trash in if the garbage doesn't fit in the opening. So no action was taken. We're just sort of trying to figure out where we want to go with this. We talked about and got an update on the new waterway the waterway multi-use path. And an application has been submitted to CDTC, oh, she left, for that grant funding. So we're hoping that gets fixed because it needs attention. We then talked about the plastic pellet pollution, or also known as nurdles, which sounds like a Dr. Seuss word, and it's not a fun word, it's a bad word. So we need to be a strong, loud voice as a community and advocate for regulation and transparency on the shipping of these very harmful packing pellets. And we must, as a community and council, demand that in the event anything like this happens again, that the company take full responsibility for cleanup, and that there is a process in place to prevent another occurrence. And really the best process would be to eliminate nurdles altogether, but I don't know how we do that as a council. But it's a bad thing, so we need to stay kind of out front of that issue. We talked a little bit about littering messaging, and we discussed some options. One initiative we really want to start is really pushing secure your load message at the building department when contractors are buying their permits. Because a lot of our trash that ends up in the marsh is from the back of pickup trucks that fly out as they're going over the connector when they don't have their load secured. We had a brief executive session to discuss contract negotiations related to water and sewer expansion projects. No actions or votes were taken. And our next meeting is Thursday, September 5th at 8 a.m. That ends my report.
Any questions? I have one question.
Okay.
Your committee was very enthusiastic about Robert Acero.
Yes.
Was the Recreation Committee equally enthusiastic?
No.
Just so everybody knows, Donnie Pitts started at the Recreation Department, and we stole him to the Public Works. And you know how great our island looks. Norma Jean trains him well. Well, Robert Acero was at the Recreation Department, and we stole him again. So anyway, Norma Jean, thank you for your training.
Yes, absolutely.
You set the bar high for everybody. Good. Thank y'all. Recreation Committee.
Speaking of, I will go ahead and give the report for Councilmember Smith. The Recreation Committee met on August 5th at 8 a.m. All members were present. Under citizens' comments, Mr. Gary Nessler spoke and thanked the director for opening up the gym early on Saturdays. A great little basketball league going on down there, and he suggested that he consider making it for adults only at that time. So they're working on that. The director, Paige, gave her a report on all things that are going on throughout the city. She listed new classes that will be offered this fall, including a game room, pickleball lessons, gardening, landscape, handling social media, farm to table classes, and Kids Planet Earth. We had some discussion about offering different exercise classes for the residents. We had moved on to old business. We had discussed an update on the surfing franchise that's going to be offered for 2020. This is something that franchises will be opened up here, and we'll discuss it at our next meeting and bring it back forth to City Council. We also had an update on the farmers market, which is right around the corner. It's next Wednesday. Right, Wednesday. Next Wednesday, yeah. And it will be on 27th Avenue this year, which will be great, right in the heart of the island. The market will begin at 3 p.m. Under new business, we had discussion of a digital message board. We had some discussion about this previously on council some time ago, about 5 years ago, and just the amount of time and energy that it takes for staff to change the letters out all the time. We have discussed putting it in a digital board. They're looking at that. You got some code requirements that we'd have to meet, but let's see if it's something we want to bring forward with. It'd be nothing flashy or anything like that. Basically, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. It'd just be a whiteboard with lettering. But you could be able to control it from any one of the city buildings. That was basically it, and our meeting adjourned. The next meeting is September 9th at 4.
Okay, any questions? Yes, sir.
Question. Where are we going to get online registration for all programs at rec?
Well, we've discussed it. We've discussed this past budget session. It's a pretty penny. It's about $38,000 to start it. And with online registration, the parents still have to come in and register their kids because they have to have proof of age, stuff like that. So they're still gonna have to come in. There's certain things that we can go through and do it. We're discussing perhaps, and there's only one program that'll work with the program that we have, and we're thinking with the way technology is changing is that we'll be able to have online registration without the $40,000 expense that it takes to do it.
Long overdue.
Well, we've been working on it, and so it's.
Any other questions? Hearing none, great report, thank you very much. Personnel.
That's me. All right, the Personnel Committee met on that's not right. Looking at August the 6th. We did meet on June the 4th as well, but our last meeting was August the 6th, 8:30, right here, and upstairs. We had all of the members, friends, Rice, Moy, Administrator Fregoso, and our HR officer went into group. After no citizens' comments, you guys really just don't want to show up for Personnel Committee meetings. At 8:30 At 8:30 in the morning, come on. We have a great time. We first started with a report on the status of boards and commissions and our selection process. And essentially, what we have discovered as of late is there's an informal policy that has been propagated for I don't know how long, that if you're serving on a commission, the Planning Commission, the ATAX committee, that if you so wish to continue serving, that you continue serving. So it is in essence a lifetime appointment once you're appointed to those committees. And we wanted to reach out to those committees and we asked them, do you think that this is appropriate, and what are some ways that you think we can engage other folks who wish to apply to be on these committees but otherwise can't enter until someone decides to resign their position? The Planning Commission in particular has a very serious role, and I'm not to say that the ATAX doesn't, but the Planning Commission has a major impact on the way that we go about laying the foundations for sewer and the way that we think about planning major infrastructure in our city. And the continuity of those who serve on that is really important. And so it was really critical for us to work with that committee to make these decisions. And I'm going on in some detail here because I think it's really important that we offer this layer of transparency when we're going about trying to think through how do we ensure transparency and keep the engagement of the folks who are currently serving, as well as those who would like to serve and would like to offer their expertise to the island. Where we arrived in the recommendation that we have, and this is not a formal recommendation because this is per code something that falls under the jurisdiction of the Personnel Committee, but more so to inform the rest of council the direction that we're taking it. And certainly as the years progress, we will amend and tweak as we find ways to improve. What we are instituting the next cycle year, which would be 2020, anyone who has served for over 6 years on any committee, their seat will be open and they are welcome to reapply. But they will go through the application process again. And so we sort of can start with a blank slate. No one is being kicked out. We really respect and we really appreciate everyone who's serving on those commissions. But if there are people who want to apply for those seats, we want to at least give them the opportunity to apply for it. So that's what we're doing with that, long-winded.
If I may, just, and totally understand with planning in particular. One thing I would ask, we at least see attendance records and understand there are other measures that I think are deeply important to this, like attendance.
Agreed.
Yeah, okay.
The next item on the agenda, we moved into new business. We got a status update on the Assistant City Administrator, and I know there's been progress since August 4th, and I believe interviews are underway, so I'll actually ask Desiree if you can give the most up-to-date.
Well, I have held about 3 interviews so far and have 4 lined up for the rest of the week. My goal is to have somebody in place by early October.
Excellent. There's your update on the Assistant City Administrator. We moved on to a discussion of the City Clerk role with the retirement of Marie Copeland and some changes that have been made with the structure of the general government. Administrator Fregoso identified an opportunity to work with a contractor to supply the role of the city clerk and keep minutes. And I think this is an item for motion.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, sir.
So we discussed, there's just a bevy of really advantages to working with a contractor in this role for a city of our size with the needs that we have at this time. And so I would like to make a motion that we appoint Nicole Deneen as the city clerk. We would like to do this on an interim basis as we see how this new system works for us. So I think 6 months was.
Correct.
On an interim basis for 6 months, and then we can reevaluate and see if it's working out for the city and for Nicole.
We have a motion.
I'll second.
Discussion.
Question.
Yes, sir.
So is it true contract worker?
Yes.
According to
Yes.
IRS rules?
1099.
Mm-hmm.
1099?
Okay.
Questions? Brother? I have one question. Doesn't this maybe save the city some money by doing it this way?
Just lobbing it up there.
Yeah, just throwing it out there. People like to hear that.
Yeah, so this is gonna save the city an estimated $70,000 a year, all told across salary, compensation, benefits, and everything like that. So it's a really wise move for us to make, and kudos to Administrator Fregoso for identifying the opportunity.
I had a follow-up that I didn't get a chance. Did you consult with the CPAs to make sure this contract labor is above board, and that's the way it is according to all the IRS, the South Carolina Department of Revenue, Employment Security Commission rules?
I did not, but I know that this particular individual, Nicole, worked in a similar capacity with the city of Folly Beach with no issue.
I respectfully request you follow up and make sure that we're protected there, because payroll tax penalties are 100%. If a lot of people like to use contract
Right.
labor when they're actually
Understood.
wages.
Right.
And have the CPA give you a written report on their determination.
Wise advice.
Should that be an amendment on that vote?
I don't think it's necessary. That's
Okay.
administration
All right,
policy.
hearing
We'll
nothing
ensure
else.
that.
Anyone else? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Ayes have it.
Lovely. We then discussed the Leola Hanbury Award. That's done, which is also lovely. We had a brief discussion on the annual employee appreciation event. That was the inaugural one was last year, so this will be the second annual. And right now, we've set the date tentatively, I think, for October 18th, or that's
correct.
That is it.
Mm-hmm.
Nailed down. That's going to be a fantastic event where we celebrate and recognize and just honor our employees.
And the goal is for the Leola, the first ever Leola Hanbury Award to be presented at that time.
Thank you. We moved on to some discussion about it was vacancy at the time, now vacancies at the Isle of Palms Water and Sewer Commission. We have 2 open seats that are coming up for election this November. We've also had 2 folks resign their positions. Per code, the city council appoints those 2 positions. We did have some discussion about adding them to the docket of the election in November, but that would be against the code. So we will make a recommendation, our committee, to this council, hopefully in the next council meeting, as to who we would appoint to those 2 seats.
You may want to remind folks that there's an application online, so if anybody's interested in applying for one of those 2 vacancies, they can go online and submit their application that will be brought forward to the Personnel Committee.
Thank you, Desiree. Do y'all hear that? my promotionals here. If you're looking for a seat on the Isle of Palms Water and Sewer Commission, IOP.net. A discussion about developing guidelines to help train city council. You may or may not know, those of you who are in the audience, those of us up here I think know, there are 4 seats up for election in November. 3 of them at minimum will be new folks who aren't currently up here. So we know that we're gonna have a lot of new faces up here come January. This is still my first term on city council, and I opined a little bit to the committee and to our staff that I kind of came in with really not a lot of know-how on what I should be doing and what the expectations were of me from city staff, from residents, and from the rest of my council member, committee members. What do we call them? Council members. Started right.
Colleagues.
My colleagues, my peers, my friends. What I have, what we have asked the city staff to do is really help prepare incoming council members as well as existing council members with setting expectations of proper decorum, how we should think about approaching policy versus really hopping into the weeds of, should we serve croissants or donuts? Those aren't the types of decisions that we want to make. So setting some really clear boundaries and expectations for what council should be doing and where we should be focusing our time and energy. So council is working, our staff is working on that, and hopefully we'll have something to present over the coming months. We did have some miscellaneous that HR Officer DeGroot brought up that we recently signed an agreement for an employee assistance program, which is just a phenomenal program that allows that provides employees and families with all kinds of types of assistance, daycare, elder care, and it's a really nominal cost to this. It's at less than $3,000 to the city, and it offers just a ton of benefits to our employees, and so it was really just a no-brainer, huge win. So we're really excited to be enrolled in that program. And then finally, the last thing we did is we did discuss in executive session the employment agreement for the city administrator. I don't have a recommendation to council this time, but I did want to make just a couple of notes before I end my really long-winded report, which is that no matter who we had appointed to this position, we would have expected to have a request for an employment agreement. As in speaking with our in-house counsel, as our appointed counsel, as well as the council that represents all of the communities throughout, all the municipalities throughout South Carolina, who's based in Columbia, the indication from all of our legal expertise is this has become a standard in this type of position. Because it's a somewhat political position in nature, who Desiree answers to everyone on council here, and we may change faces every 2 years. It's pretty common, not pretty common, it is essentially standard practice in municipal government for an employment agreement at that level of government. So we are working out the details of what that agreement looks like. It not only protects the administrator, it also sets really clear expectations and helps protect the city in the event that there's any sort of decision on either party to cease or terminate employment. So there's a lot more to come. All the details we will have well in advance of the next meeting, so that you have time to go through it and ask any questions of our legal counsel beforehand.
Okay.
That may be the longest report.
This is my longest report. Y'all got to come to these personnel committees. They get wild.
Any questions?
Rock and roll, good time.
Hearing none, moving on. Real property did not meet in August. And before we lose anybody else, I just want to let everybody know that we are now officially live streaming on YouTube. You can go to YouTube, look for the City of Isle Palms. Once we got 100 sign-up people,
Say
see
hi.
the camera up there, you can watch us live. So again, if you want to watch us,
That's why you
please.
get paid for that, right?
I get paid by the word. That's why I'm up here.
All good.
All right, thank you, Dana. All right, reports from city officers, boards, and commissions. Accommodations Tax Advisory Board, no meeting in August. Board of Zoning Appeals, the minutes are attached. Planning Commission, minutes are attached. Reports from special or joint committees, we have none. Petitions received, referred, or disposed of, we have none. Tonight we have three second readings on council. First one up is second reading of ordinance 2017-08. An ordinance to require that all subdivision of lots be connected to public sewer systems and to require certain information related to sewer connection for the subdivision approval process. This is something we've been talking about. It's more or less baby steps for the future. We have some who've been pushing hard to get us on sewer island-wide. Economically, it's kind of tough right now, but we are making strides in that direction. Do I hear a motion for approval?
So moved.
And I have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of ordinance 2017-08, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Ayes have it. 2017-09, an ordinance amending Title V, Planning and Development, Chapter 4. Substantial improvements, all new construction and/or substantial improvements shall be connected to public sewer systems where a public sewer line is located within 150 feet, and to reduce the lot coverage requirements and floor area requirements for lots with septic tanks. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
How many properties are there that are outside of 150 feet within a sewer line?
You know, if I'm not mistaken, I think Desiree has talked to the water and sewer, and it's really not that many that are close by.
Correct. Currently, we haven't really seen the map that shows that kind of information. It's been talked about by the Water and Sewer Commission that maybe a handful, less than 10.
Up front.
Yeah, less than 10 currently would apply, would go under this new regulation,
Help us, guys.
that are currently within 150 feet.
You say less than 10?
Yes.
So I don't think it would be that few. I think you're thinking of
The houses.
I think you're thinking of the next one.
Oh, am I? Probably.
So part of the problem that the planning commission had is and this will be something that needs to be worked through, but they would not tell us exactly where the sewer line was, or they didn't want to publish a map because of, and I think it was because of Homeland Security concerns of telling us that. So we were trying to generate a map. We were trying to generate exactly, identify exactly which properties it would impact. We have been unable to do that, but we are assured that as those properties go through the process of getting a permit, that when one hits that trigger, we will be made aware of that. So we don't, that's a long-winded way of answering your question. We do not know exactly how many properties meet that. I think it would be more than 10. I think it would be less than, 100.
A follow-up question? if I may.
Councilman?
Go ahead.
Yes, sir, Mr. Moore.
How was that, do you know how that number, 150 feet, was chosen?
Yes, I can tell you that the planning commission originally wanted to do, and just for a little bit of background, the planning commission really wanted for the system to start growing by basically evolution, that it would over time, it would get extended here, and then a little bit farther here, a little bit farther there. They knew that, from an efficiency standard, that wasn't the best way to do it, but they saw that as kind of an immediate path forward when somebody was building a house, and they're dealing with their septic system anyway, and that it would make sense at that point to extend the sewer line. They initially wanted to make it a farther distance. It was 500 feet for the majority of their discussions. The problem came when the discussions came about as to how much that would cost. And that led, and how many properties would it impact, and do we know exactly all of the ramifications. So it was shortened down to 150 feet, assuming that would be a fairly small sampling of properties, and that over several years, some analysis could be done in terms of how many hit that trigger, what was the cost of expanding those lines, what was the difficulty, and at that point, if a greater distance, like 500 feet, was, could be tolerated, that would ultimately be the goal, that these lines would be getting extended farther and faster.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Bell?
Just, I like really definitive words, so when I read substantial improvement, do we know what that means?
Yeah, that's a clearly defined, that is, you are improving more than half of the market value of the building. So that's in there for other codes, like primarily the flood regulations.
That's where I was going.
Yeah, it is.
That's the structure, not the lot.
The structure.
Value of the structure, correct.
Yes, ma'am.
So if there is a grinder pump within 100, does that count?
No.
Okay,
This
that's
is,
what I
this
just
is
wanted to
gravity,
Okay.
gravity operated sewer.
And based on that question right there, we're trying to get away from grinder
Right.
pumps and have gravity.
Right.
That's the Water and Sewer Commission's, that's been their goal.
Council? Yes, sir.
Douglas, based on, let's say, the number of houses there, what percentage of these homes are being, I don't wanna say forced, but are going, of the new home constructions, that are going, tying into the sewer already? Would you say majority of them?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're, I would say maybe 25% of new homes are using a septic system. They're either tying, and I would say probably, you know, the remaining of the 75%, probably 70% are using a grinder pump.
Okay.
So, you know, that's the biggest chunk of properties, they're using a grinder pump. Fairly small group is using septics, and an even smaller group are actually extending the gravity operated line.
Septics or engineered septics? Or you're throwing that all in the
One
same?
and the same.
Point of clarification. Yes, sir.
I just have one more question. As it relates to new construction or a substantial improvement that might fall under this code, they would be required to connect to the public sewer that's within 150 feet. But the code does, the ordinance doesn't state that they have to build that in such a way that other folks could tie into it, or did I miss that? In other words, they could sub-optimize the construction because it might be a lower cost to them, and then the work of building that, extending out is not necessary. Is that covered in this ordinance?
You do get, so, going down another rabbit hole, but the health department will not allow you have to go through DHEC to get permitting. The health department will allow you to do a little bit smaller than maybe serving the whole neighborhood. But again, I think the planning commission's theory there and their hope would be, and I think this is played out in other smaller projects, if an owner is paying the amount to extend, say, a 6-inch line and the community needs a 10-inch line, there's gonna be a delta there of price that we would expect that the Water and Sewer Commission or somebody would pay that difference to ensure that that line could go farther down the street the next time somebody comes. But you're getting to exact points of when it comes to drafting an ordinance like this, it can get so technical, and we didn't want the code to be written that way. We wanted there to be some flexibility to make good decisions like that, that if you need to upsize it, that it be upsized. Who's gonna pay for it, you know, that's not identified in this code.
Just for a point of clarification, on this gravity-fed sewer, the grinder pumps, if the power goes out, it doesn't run.
That's correct.
That's why we're trying to go to gravity-fed. Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Ayes have it. Doug Stater, you're probably gonna need you a couple more times. Second reading, ordinance 2017-10, an ordinance to require mandatory connection to public sewer system where public sewer line is available upon the sale or transfer of the property. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Yes, sir.
I'm always asking, I just want to make sure that this provision is included in this ordinance. It's my feeling that if I have a home and I want to pass it in my estate to my heirs, that the property be excluded from this ordinance, as long as it stays within the trust or who I decide to will the property to.
It is my understanding, Douglas, that that is correct.
That is correct.
That is correct.
That's correct.
Any other questions?
Julia, is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
I would observe in that instance, you would not be doing your heirs a favor, nor the island.
More questions?
Is there any distance on this one at all?
I think it's,
There is, yes. When you look at section 6142, it's deemed available when it's
Right.
located in a right-of-way or easement abutting any lot line of the property.
So could I give just a little
Mhm.
background on the thought behind this one? So this one, and as Desiree was saying, this does not currently cover many properties. There are only a handful that have a gravity-operated sewer line right in front of their house. And this ordinance would obviously, as it's written, when that property sells to somebody outside the family, it would require that they tie in. It's only a handful of properties currently, but again, the planning commission's long-term goal, and going back to the ordinance prior to this, is that eventually there's gonna be more extensions happening, and as those extensions happen, they're gonna be crossing in front of more properties. So this ordinance would become really more important as those expansions start happening. It's not gonna be terribly meaningful now, but it's more looking towards the future.
thank you. Yes, sir.
No, some of the other ones with the impact it'll have, this one I have a little bit of issue with, just the fact that, I'm not sure how old. If somebody has a operational, septic field now and it does sell, then somebody's gonna be forced into it. And it may not happen with this situation, like you said, it's such a small, but down the road and what have you. So forcing it, I just have an issue with it, so.
Anybody? Yes, sir.
What's your estimation that if city council, this council, and councils in the future did nothing else, how long, based upon these three items, would it take for the city to be under 100% compliant on the sewer system?
It'd take a very long time.
So very long.
I think for it to grow quicker, the second ordinance that you just ratified, that distance needs to be increased at some point. If the goal is to do it in the next 20 or 30 years, I think you'd have to change that second code.
So our citizens should be aware that there's been a report to the Water and Sewer Authority that they could do an implementation citywide in 8 years. This will take us out far beyond our lifetimes and or our children's. And I hope the council in the future will be more aggressive on this issue.
Anyone else? Hearing none. All those in favor of second reading of ordinance 2017-10, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
No.
One nay. Okay, moving on. Number 10, introduction of new bills, resolution, proclamations. First reading, ordinance to amendments to ensure properties on the Isle of Palms are kept in a condition that are both safe to the public and maintains the character of the island.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we amend the rules of order in order for council members to discuss this, even though it's not customary on first reading.
I'll second that.
Okay. All those in favor of this point of order, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Yes, sir.
Me?
Yeah.
Jimmy,
You started it.
Right. This is something that came out of real property and also public safety, I believe.
Yep.
And which I'm strongly was in favor of, but what I read and what the final reading of it is something that I really can't get on board with, because I think it's not addressing the root problem of what we had. And I think it's just a little bit overkill. The news channel did a story on it. I don't think they did us any justice besides stirring things up. We were trying to address these root problems, especially on like number I think it's number 6, Forest Trail Court 1 is one of the properties. And if this ordinance passes, it still has to go back to committee for reworking and before second reading. I'm for doing something about this in a major way to protect homeowners from surrounding properties, but I think this one's just a little overkill. I know I hate when people say that, but I've had a ton of emails and today and a lot of phone calls of people saying, just screaming with their arms up in the air and HOA, 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 and man, it's not that. That's not what we're trying to do. But I think we've got the island unduly upset, and we should just work on it some more, is my comments. I'm all in favor of what we're trying to accomplish, but I think it needs to be rewritten.
Councilman Bell.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. We're addressing a very small number of properties on the island. I read all the, boy, we're becoming an HOA, and I didn't move into Wild Bear, I didn't want an HOA. There's one sentence, even in the titling of this, that says the character of the island. I don't know anyone out there that can define that in strict terms. Right? There was no discussion of the character of the island. There was discussion around public safety and health. There was discussion around grossly derelict properties. It was not intended in any way, shape, or form to address somebody with a small amount of mold or a piece of rotted wood. It was those few properties that have been long-term neglected that are causing a public safety issue, right? So I know it has to come back. Completely support Councilman Ward's comments on this. I'm just really troubled by the character of the island piece, because I don't think that we can arbitrarily determine a standard for what that would look like.
Anyone else?
No, I think what we were trying to attack was the fact that we had a derelict house with somebody had zero regard for their neighbors, basically.
Right.
And was not taking care of it and creating it's a public safety. And that's what we looked when we came out of public safety, is what is the public safety implications of it? Orange peel paint or chip paint is not one, and definitely not a public safety issue. And living on the coast, neither is potential rust. So I think it's something we definitely need to continue to look at under this ordinance. I'm hesitant to move forward right now. I'd just assume send it back to committee, because pending ordinance doctrine at first reading would allow it to be enforceable. So anything that would move forward would still be an issue. So based on pending ordinance doctrine, I would just recommend that the motions and second be withdrawn. We'll take it back to committee and work with some of the.
There was no motion.
There was a motion. Okay, perfect.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, just wanted, and I recall the conversation, it was public safety, Ryan, if I'm correct, right? Was in concert with our new police chief, who had some experience with some international code and ordinance. And we were trying to get as broad as we could without getting overzealous and doing something that we regret to do later. And I would wholeheartedly suggest we get this back to committee immediately and just spend a little more time on it, but recognize to the residents that have come before us multiple times, we are not trying to slow walk this, we're trying to get it right.
Douglas, could borrow you for a second up front? Guys, I don't want him to get out of here until we finish this. So Douglas, we heard some citizens tonight, and we have contacted other residents here in Isle Palms, and they jumped on their houses and brought them into compliance. Do we have any teeth beyond just contacting them and?
Well, so the subject property that has been, kind of the issue here, it does not look good. You look at it from the road and it is not a pretty house. However, if you go, and I've taken Desiree up there, I've been there numerous times. If you go around it, there's some rotten wood, there's some peeling paint. They've done some awful things with paint in terms of being multicolored. There is a railing that is loose. There was a roof that was falling down on the porch, but we made them remove that, so now there's just columns, brick posts at the corner. It would not be safe, I would suspect, to go into the house and, and to start living in it, but from the outside, the owners cut the lawn when they're asked to, but the pool is,
It's not covered, right?
no. The pool is green.
It's covered in algae.
It doesn't look good, but there is an appropriate barrier around it. If that barrier were to fall down, we would have the power to have them put it back up. If the doors were open and it was an attractive nuisance to teenagers, we would have the power to make them close those up and permanently seal them. But beyond that, we really are down to rotten, there's a lot of rotten wood on it, there's a lot of mold on it, but you are getting to the level where, this is, when we kind of talked about what is it that you want to address, with that property, it is rotten wood, paint job, and the pool. So I don't know that I don't know that you can walk back much of what's in this code and still address the complaint that you're dealing with.
In normal terms, would it be condemned?
No, it's completely safe. I mean, it's structurally, well, I wouldn't want to move in, but it's not, you condemn houses when they're leaning over and they're gonna collapse. This structure in no way is in danger of, falling over. Now the roof to the porch was, but they removed that.
Councilman King.
We hear about social media and all the comments, and I hear from all these people. I want my colleagues to appreciate and respect the people that actually take the time to come to the meeting and share with us their views. And those folks should be given a disproportionate amount of our respect and support. So whatever you do, I hope you expedite it and we don't drag it out. Thank you.
Douglas, is this the only house in Isle Palms that has neighbors complaining about it?
There's one other that has active complaints, and they're in kind of a similar situation where they will address kind of the minimum standard that they can address. So I think there's two that we receive active complaints. This is by far the one that gets the most complaints.
I hate to be the elephant in the room here. But I am.
You want a third?
I have a house that I own, I've lived in since 2002, that's been in litigation for over 4 years due to termites. The house looks horrible. Luckily, my neighbors all want me to prevail and fight the fight, because it could be y'all who are fighting the insurance companies and the attorneys to drag it out to get you to settle. So again, there are ramifications, we've talked about that earlier, but I just want to make sure that we're talking about two houses that have neighbors' complaints. Lucky my neighbors are, fight it, Jimmy, fight it. Anyway, I just want to make sure everybody hears that I have a horrible looking house and all that.
One last comment.
Yes, sir.
I think the citizens are really sensitive to the word HOA.
Yeah.
They don't want to have anything to do with it. That's one of the reasons I moved here, we just gotta make sure that we don't go overboard with this thing.
So going back to committee.
Mayor, I would recommend a motion to defer to public safety for further action.
Motion to defer.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, unanimous. Any nays? Ayes have it. Ordinance 2019-17, public participation. An ordinance to provide amendments to provide clarity to the rules of procedure during public meetings.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Second?
Why do we need something else other than what's on the books?
This is discussion, all right?
Well, you gotta have a motion to
Have a
suspend the
motion and a
rules.
second? Okay, all those in favor? Aye, aye? Okay, now your discussion. I'm sorry?
Was that the motion, was
A
for
motion
discussion?
and a second, and now,
Okay, for
yes.
discussion, I'm sorry.
Councilman Kinghorn.
I move to suspend the rules so we can have a discussion.
Well, we're already,
Y'all just, yeah, that
We're
was
in
the motion.
discussion.
You're good.
Why do we need something in addition to what we have?
I'll be happy to kind of jump in there for a little bit. Looking at local communities, Mount Pleasant, Folly Beach, Charleston, they all have limitations on citizens' comments. We've had a couple evenings here where we've had a lot of heated moments where a lot of people have come out, and we've had citizens' comments go from an hour to an hour and a half to 2 hours. And that really starts taking up a lot of time. So what we're asking for people to do is to apply as they walk in the door to make citizens' comments. We're gonna allow 30 minutes for citizens' comments, and the total number of people who are signed up, if it's under 10, they get 3 minutes each. If it's 20, when we run out of 3-minute increments, they have to leave their paperwork at the front.
My position would be, the chair's role to control the meeting. We have a 3-minute limitation, and that should be respected by our citizens' comments. The chair does that, and the citizen has additional comments, they provide that for the record. They can provide us 2 volumes of data and information. I don't think it's necessary, but if you all feel it's needed to run a meeting, have at it.
Okay, any other, yes ma'am?
I feel like 30 minutes is very arbitrary, depending on just what's going on in the community. I don't know if, sometimes our citizens' comments are 1 minute, and other times if people really do have a lot of things they're concerned about, I think we need to give them a platform, and I just worry that 30 minutes might be too arbitrary. It's just philosophical.
Anybody else before I comment?
No, and I think at that point, I think we might be able to suspend the rules and allow further discussion if there's still.
Depending on how many.
Yeah.
It could be changed by a vote of council.
By a vote of
It could be
council.
extended.
At that point, it could be extended.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think the big city of Mount Pleasant has 30 minutes citizens' comments.
True.
Which is 86,000 people, and we're 5,000.
And growing.
So I think 30 minutes is probably not bad. More comments, suggestions?
Jimmy, I'll just make a comment. I mean, I think this was based on 20 minutes of diatribe from a tenant directed at me personally. And I've had the discussion with the mayor. I think it was the mayor's job to have control of the meeting. It didn't happen. And as a council member, I don't believe anybody sitting up here deserves to be treated that way. And particularly by a commercial tenant of the city. So, my suggestion along with that is there are venues for commercial tenants. It's called the Real Property Committee. And I don't believe that we should be sitting up here and taking up anyone's time under citizens' comments for something that's inappropriate. And I've got thick skin, I can take it, but I have to say, in 40-plus years of being in the corporate world, I've never been treated like that in a meeting. And if this is the answer because we can't control a meeting, then so be it. Do I believe we need an ordinance change? Probably not. I think we need to understand that this is to be a respected environment and people are to be treated in a certain way.
Just to add to that, just so you know, it is part of our ordinance now, 30 minutes.
Yep.
And it was part of our ordinance in existence right now to sign up 30 minutes prior to. Somewhere between 8 years of my getting on council ago, and after I think Mike Satilli, we kind of lost that control. So now we're bringing it back into the House and going to have control. That was based on last month. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
One question, one of these statements says that council members may, but need not, ask questions of speakers at the conclusion of their comments. We have never been able to have a discussion.
Right.
So this is now in there, which would allow discussion, correct?
Correct. I think it was a concern that council had expressed in the past about being able to ask questions of the speakers to clarify and maybe have a short debate. And this would allow it if it is the will of council.
Yeah, and if I may.
Yes, sir.
I don't believe it's the intention to debate the citizen. I think it's to further, gather more information on the questions. Okay.
But I do think to Carol's point, there are times when 30 minutes is not going to be appropriate. And if we have the ability to suspend the rules, then so be it.
We have that ability.
Yeah,
Okay, anything else? Hearing none. All those in favor of 2019-17 public participation, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
Nay. Not necessary.
That's Councilmember Kinghorn. Okay, moving on. Miscellaneous business, have none. Next meeting is 6 p.m. Tuesday, September 24th. I want to make sure that everybody knows the farmer market, we already said it once tonight, begins next Wednesday at 3 o'clock to 7 at the Recreation Center. And don't forget, we're live streaming. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah.
I'm glad we got to see what you
How are you? Now you know why we're doing this 30 minutes, because
You still want me to lock the doors? Get the first one for you.
You're done, okay, so staff is listed here for all.
Alright, see you later. Take care. I like your shirt there. I saved these folks.
My neighbor actually helped me with this.
Okay, you're planning committee. Oh, okay.
See you guys. See you. Nice to meet you. Yes, good luck. Yeah, sure.
Carol Rice is also.
How do I get a hold of you?
Only Timmy is running for re-election. Yeah, so we're definitely gonna have 3 new. And then there are 4-year terms.
Oh, I thought there was.
No, we don't have 4-year terms.
So you're welcome.
And then dilapidated homes.
We have one more thing. It's a big issue.
thank you, good seeing you. I'm walking.
He was asking if there's any place else.
Desiree, Kevin Popson. I got your message
got a voicemail?
right before I came in. I didn't want to call you because I knew you were crazy with this. So,
Send me an email or call me tomorrow if
Okay.
you can set something up. I'm
Yeah.
actually open tomorrow afternoon. I
How
had
are
a
you,
meeting
sir?
that just got
Good seeing you.
canceled.
You know, Scott,
So tomorrow works, if not, sometime next week should be.
yeah, I knew I got something in the morning and then something else at 2.